There's a reason many people become wealthy temporarily, but very few remain wealthy peacefully. And according to ancient wisdom, the difference often begins with speed, because modern culture is obsessed with fast success, fast money, fast results, fast luxury, fast recognition. But ancient teachers warned that anything built too quickly without strong foundations often collapses just as fast. An old builder once told his apprentice, "The tallest towers are not protected by height, but by depth." That lesson was never only about buildings. It was about wealth, because true wealth is not merely about acquiring money. It is about building a financial structure strong enough to survive storms. Now think carefully. Why do some people earn enormous amounts of money yet lose everything later? Ancient wisdom believed the answer was simple. They built income faster than they built discipline. And discipline is what protects wealth after excitement disappears. Now listen carefully. Many people secretly want wealth because they imagine freedom, but they ignore the habits required to preserve freedom once it arrives. Impulsive spending, emotional decisions, comparison, lifestyle inflation, the constant need to impress others. These hidden behaviors quietly destroy financial stability from within. Ancient teachers compared wealth to carrying water across a desert. A careless traveler may spill most of it before reaching safety, but a disciplined traveler protects every drop carefully because he understands the journey is long. That was the ancient mindset toward money. Protection before display. Now here comes one of the deepest truths about slow wealth. Slow wealth trains a person while building the fortune. Read that again slowly. When wealth grows gradually, discipline grows with it. Patience grows with it. Wisdom grows with it. And because the person develops internally while progressing externally, the wealth becomes sustainable. But quick wealth often skips internal development. And this is why sudden success destroys many people emotionally. Now notice something important. Ancient wise men rarely admired flashy wealth. They admired stable wealth, quiet wealth, protected wealth, because visible riches without discipline were considered fragile. Now imagine two farmers. The first farmer burns through every harvest, celebrating immediately. The second farmer protects seeds for future seasons before enjoying the rest. At first, the second farmer appears overly cautious, less exciting, less impressive. But during difficult seasons, only one farmer remained secure. That was the ancient philosophy of wealth building. Long-term thinking over emotional excitement. Now listen carefully to this next truth. The reason slow wealth feels difficult is because it rarely impresses people immediately. There are no dramatic overnight transformations, no instant luxury, no sudden applause, just consistent discipline repeated quietly over years. And modern society struggles with this because people are addicted to visible progress. But ancient wisdom understood something powerful. What grows slowly often grows stronger. And in the next part, you're going to discover the hidden habit ancient teachers believed separated people who kept wealth from those who constantly lost it. An old merchant once gave the same amount of money to two young men. The first spent carefully for a few weeks, then slowly returned to reckless habits. The second treated every coin as if it carried responsibility. Years later, one man remained trapped financially. The other became quietly wealthy. When asked the difference, the merchant answered, one respected money emotionally, the other respected money structurally. That sentence contains enormous wisdom, because according to ancient teachings, wealth is rarely built through emotion. It is built through systems, habits, structure, consistency. Now think carefully. Many people treat money based on mood. When they feel good, they spend freely. When stressed, they spend emotionally. When successful, they reward themselves excessively. And because emotions constantly change, their finances become unstable too. Ancient teachers warned strongly against emotional financial behavior, because emotional people often destroy long-term progress for short-term comfort. Now here comes one of the greatest secrets about slow wealth. Small disciplined actions repeated consistently become powerful over time. Ancient wisdom compared this to water carving through stone, not through force, but through consistency. And this is how wealth is often built quietly. saving regularly, investing carefully, avoiding unnecessary debt, protecting resources, living below emotional pressure. None of these habits appear dramatic daily, but over years, they create enormous stability. Now listen carefully to this next truth. Many people lose wealth because they increase lifestyle faster than income. Ancient teachers understood this danger centuries ago. That is why they valued restraint, because restraint protects future freedom. A person constantly expanding expenses eventually becomes trapped by their own lifestyle, and trapped people rarely experience peace. Now imagine a man carrying heavy gold chains. From a distance, he appears wealthy, but the closer you look, the chains are slowing him down. That was the ancient analogy for excessive lifestyle burdens. Not everything expensive creates freedom. Some things create financial slavery disguised as success. Now think carefully. Why do some wealthy-looking people secretly feel anxious constantly? Because appearances often hide pressure, debt, fear, instability. But ancient wisdom admired people who built quietly without emotional need for validation, because peace mattered more than appearance. Now here comes another hidden principle. People who keep wealth usually develop patience with growth. They stop needing immediate rewards constantly, and patience changes financial behavior dramatically. Patient people invest longer, save more carefully, avoid desperate shortcuts, and desperation destroys many futures. Ancient teachers repeatedly warn that greed creates blindness. A greedy person often ignores danger chasing quick gain, and quick gain without wisdom often becomes quick loss. Now, listen carefully to this next principle. The people who keep wealth longest are usually not the loudest. They're often disciplined privately, consistent privately, careful privately, because lasting prosperity is usually built in silence before it becomes visible publicly. And in the next part, you're going to discover why protecting wealth psychologically matters just as much as earning it financially. Ancient teachers once compared wealth to a garden. Planting seeds was important, but protecting the garden afterward mattered just as much, because without protection, even a healthy garden eventually gets destroyed. That was the ancient warning about money. Earning wealth is one skill. Keeping wealth is another. And according to old wisdom, the second skill is often harder. Now think carefully. Why do lottery winners frequently lose everything? Why do some celebrities become rich then collapse financially? Why do businesses rise quickly then disappear? Ancient teachers believed the answer was psychological weakness, because wealth magnifies behavior already hidden inside a person. Poor discipline becomes larger. Poor judgment becomes riskier. Emotional spending becomes more dangerous. And without internal stability, external abundance becomes difficult to sustain. Now listen carefully. One of the greatest enemies of lasting wealth is ego, the need to appear successful, to impress people, to prove something. Ancient wisdom warned that ego quietly consumes resources faster than necessity ever could, because once identity becomes attached to appearances, people begin spending emotionally to maintain an image, and images are expensive prisons. Now imagine a king who spends all the kingdom's gold decorating the palace walls while neglecting food storage for winter. From the outside, the kingdom looks impressive, but internally, collapse is approaching. That was the ancient analogy for fake wealth, visible luxury without protected foundations. Now here comes another uncomfortable truth. Some people become financially unstable because they cannot tolerate simplicity. Everything must feel luxurious. Everything must feel upgraded. Everything must appear impressive. But ancient wise men respected moderation deeply, because moderation protects flexibility, and flexibility protects survival. Now, listen carefully to this next principle. Wealth preserved slowly creates peace. Why? Because financial reserves reduce desperation, and desperation causes terrible decisions, bad investments, bad relationships, bad business choices, panic behavior. This is why ancient teachers viewed savings and restraint almost like emotional armor, protection against chaos. Now think carefully. A person with financial reserves thinks differently during emergencies, moves differently, negotiates differently, lives differently, because fear controls them less. and freedom from constant fear is one of the greatest forms of wealth itself. Now here comes one of the deepest truths in this entire discussion. Many people admire the visible results of wealth, but ignore the invisible sacrifices behind it. Delayed gratification, patience, consistency, restraint, self-control, quiet discipline repeated for years. Ancient wisdom believed these invisible habits mattered more than temporary excitement, because excitement fades quickly, but structure creates stability. Now listen carefully to this next truth. Slow wealth building protects people from emotional destruction because it develops maturity gradually, and mature people usually sustain prosperity longer than impulsive people. But there is still one final lesson ancient teachers believed determined whether wealth lasted for generations or disappeared within one lifetime. An old teacher once planted an olive tree with his grandson beside him. The boy laughed and asked, "Why plant something that takes so many years to mature?" The old man smiled slowly and replied, "Because wise people build for seasons they may never personally see." That sentence captures the deepest secret about lasting wealth. True wealth is not merely consumption. It is preservation, legacy, protection, stewardship. And according to ancient wisdom, people who think only about immediate pleasure rarely sustain prosperity long term. Now think carefully. Many people want the appearance of wealth, but very few study the mindset required to preserve it for decades. Ancient teachers believed lasting wealth required three things: discipline, patience, and emotional control. Because money itself is neutral, it simply magnifies habits already present inside a person. Now listen carefully to this next truth. One of the reasons slow wealth lasts longer is because it usually grows alongside wisdom. The person learns gradually, makes smaller mistakes early, builds stronger judgment over time, and develops respect for resources. But quick wealth often creates arrogance, and arrogance blinds people to danger. Ancient wisdom warned about this repeatedly, because pride convinces people they are untouchable, until consequences arrive suddenly. Now imagine two ships crossing the ocean. One ship races aggressively, burning resources carelessly to appear powerful. The other moves steadily, conserving fuel carefully for storms ahead. At first, the slower ship appears unimpressive, but during difficult weather, only one ship completes the journey safely. That was the ancient philosophy behind slow wealth. Survival mattered more than appearance. Now here comes one of the most important truths in this entire discussion. The goal of wealth is not merely luxury. It is freedom. Freedom from panic. Freedom from constant dependence. Freedom to make wiser decisions calmly. And freedom is usually built slowly, not emotionally. Now listen carefully. People who keep wealth forever often develop a healthy relationship with enough. This does not mean lack of ambition. It means they are no longer controlled by endless comparison, because endless comparison creates endless spending, and endless spending destroys peace. Ancient teachers believed gratitude protected wealth because grateful people manage resources more carefully. Now here comes a final lesson. The people who sustain wealth across generations usually think differently from those chasing temporary status. They think long-term, protect foundations, prepare for future storms, teach discipline early, and avoid emotional financial decisions. Because according to old wisdom, wealth built slowly may test your patience, but wealth built carelessly often tests your survival. So, if your progress feels slow right now, do not become discouraged. Roots grow silently before trees become visible. Continue building carefully. Continue protecting your habits. Continue strengthening discipline. Because perhaps the slow process itself is what creates lasting stability. And remember this ancient truth. Anyone can become wealthy temporarily, but only disciplined people build wealth strong enough to survive time itself. If this message opened your eyes, subscribe to the channel and share this with someone chasing fast success while ignoring the power of slow, disciplined growth. Because sometimes the strongest fortunes are not the loudest ones. They're the ones built patiently enough to last forever.